Hello everyone, I'm the discussion director, Zuniga, and today I prepared some questions to guide this video about Jane Eyre. I prepared these questions based on the specific role of each member of my group. So first start with Sofia Bernal as the history collector. How does Jane Eyre reflect the context of the 19th century? What limitations faced women during that time?
Well, Jane Eyre is fascinating. It's really a window into the social realities of early 19th century England. The Victorian era was highly structured, with a strict rule around class, gender, and morality. Jane herself, as an orphan girl and later a governess, lived in this in-between space. She's educated and morally upright, yet she has very little social power. Through her story, Bronte shows how limited opportunities were for women, and how fear of social failure or moral transgression shaped people's lives. Jane's humble beginnings contrast sharply with the wealth and status of Thornfield Hall, showing the rigidity of Victorian class structures. At the same time, the novel highlights gender roles. Women were expected to be passive, obedient, and dependent on men. Jane constantly struggles to assert her own identity and make moral choices while navigating these social pressures. By ultimately giving Jane both inheritance and independence, Bronte suggests that personal virtue, intelligence, and moral strength can surpass the limitations imposed by class and gender.
And now moving on with Gabriel Catalan as the artful artist. Which scene or idea did you choose from the film to represent your artwork? And why it is so significant?
A governess with steady gaze, confined by duty's iron maze, she walks the halls where silence clings, a sparrow caged with broken wings. The word decrees, she must obey, a gentle companion faded away, yet in her breast a flame resides, a voice that no command can hide. She loves, yet will not bow to chains, her spirit stronger than her pains. She claims her word, her equal stand, not as a jewel in his hand. The name of this poem is The Fire Within Jane. This poem expresses Jane Eyre as a woman who struggled against the oppressive roles of the Victorian woman, which are expected to be quiet, submissive, and dependent of the men. The sentence, confined by duty's iron maze, it refers to the way that Victorian society restricts a woman to narrow domestic roles. The flame in the poem symbolizes Jane's inner strength and determination and moral conviction, which defy these expectations of the roles of women. The sentence, she loves yet will not bow to chains, it emphasized Jane's refusal to marry Mr. Rochester on unequal terms, resulting in her insisting on independence and indignity. The last paragraph declares her belief that woman's soul cannot be trapped by tradition, echoing Jane's revolutionary demand for gender equality. In conclusion, this poem highlights Jane Eyre as a symbol of female empowerment in the Victorian era, breaking through the constant place upon women.
So moving on with Paz Gallardo as the capable connector. Which connections do you find between Jane Eyre and another film, or maybe another book, or even a personal experience?
So I chose to connect The Devil Wears Prada with the movie Jane Eyre because I think both Miranda Priestley and Jane Eyre share some similarities towards that they want to have freedom, to have independence. Because in the case of Miranda Priestley, she only wants to be successful in her field. However, she is seen as a frivolous woman and as a bad mother. However, if she were a man, he will be seen as a good father who only wants to take care of his family, who is providing for them. And that's why I think that is very similar their situations because of society. The stereotypes and the role that society plays even nowadays in how women can live is really important to notice it, because Jane Eyre wanted to be unmarried because she only wanted to marry a man who she could fall in love with, not because it was something dictated to do. So yeah, I think Miranda Priestley and Jane Eyre are seeking for their independence, and that's seen as a bad thing in the eyes of society.
So next with Isidora Espinoza as the War Wizard. Did you notice something about the dialogue in the film? Are there any expression or phrase that were more powerful?
What stands out about the language in Jane Eyre is how playful, intimate, and layered it feels. Rochester doesn't just talk to Jane, he invents codes for her, calling her my little friend, elf, or sprite. These aren't random nicknames, but expressions that show how he sees her, clever, elusive, alive. Today we might say my partner in crime or my muse, but Rochester's words carry a sharper mix of affection, teasing, and challenge. The dialogue balances irony and directness in ways that still resonate. When Rochester says, "You are a little too clever for your own comfort," it's teasing yet testing. Jane's responses like, "I have not been trampled on, I have not been petrified," are plain but powerless, assertions of independence that still feel timeless. Idioms also stand out. Rochester's second self, for example, echoes modern phrases like my other half, but with more gravity. Even their pauses, inflections, and irony show how tone can layer meaning, revealing both power and vulnerability. What is striking is how relevant it all feels. The playful nicknames, the teasing challenges, and the emotional weight packed into small phrases mirror the way we still use language today. Jane Eyre reminds us that speech isn't static, it moves, dances, and shapes how we connect, just as it did 2 centuries ago.
So finally, with Josefa Varas as the character analyzer, what character do you think that changes the most during the film? Do you think Rochester was a good match for Jane?
So I'm gonna start talking about Jane Eyre. She's a really strong and independent woman with a great sense of morality and justice. Even though she had a very difficult childhood with a lot of mistreatment and abuse, her empathy and sensibility remain intact. She's a person who always followed her principles when acting, even though it was very difficult to her to act that way. An example for that way would be when she discovered that Rochester is already married, so she decided to escape from him even though she loves him. She's really relevant for the plot because she's the main character of the story, so her evolution as a person allows the narrative to flow. Then we have Mr. Rochester. He's really complicated but also passionate. He has a dark past, and it's a character that sometimes is shown as dominant, but also sometimes we can see his vulnerable side. The decision he planned to make were closely related to his passionate sides, and also to how much he wanted something. An example for that would be the fact that he hid his marriage in order to marry Jane. He's really relevant for the plot because in the story we can see the fact of the great love that he had for Jane, and with these we visualize the great moral dilemma that she must go through in order to grow in her life. Then we have John Rivers, that is a really cold man with a lot of discipline and with a lot of love of religion. He decides to propose to Jane, not for love, but because she would be useful in his life. This character is important to counterbalance between him and Rochester, since in John we can see a life without love or affection, based only in a life with sacrifice. In a moment then Jane realizes this and decides to live a life of independence and true love with Rochester.
And to end this video, I want to finish with a little reflection about the movie. And I want to say that what stands out the most about Jane Eyre is how timeless its questions are. For example, the film shows us that love, independence, and moral integrity are struggles that go beyond the 19th century. And Jane's journey shows us the courage it takes to stay true to ourselves, even when society or personal circumstances push us in another direction. So that's all. We hope you all enjoyed this video, and thank you.